Father, you're saying the message is simple, the need is great, the Gospels, as you understand
the
it,
Gospels,
speak to that.
I think if you separate your Jesus, and I'm saying it with respect to all other, to Islam and to the Jewish and all that, but I'm saying one of the problems is that your Jesus, you see, hasn't been allowed to be our friend, because the clerics turned your Jesus into a category called Christ. Now, once they start talking about Christ, it's amazing to me that clerics don't easily talk about Jesus, except the evangelists in the deep south of America, and they're more toxic, you see, because they start saying without Jesus you can't be saved, which is an insult to your Jesus, because your Jesus were never intended to be a kind of religious icon through which you must go to be saved. You've only got to be fair, firm and friendly, and that was his mission, was in fact to show how far friendship should go. And is there a saying, something greater love than this no person has? They lay down their life for their friends. He would say lay down their life for their enemies. See?
That's a pretty radical message, though, isn't it?
Well, that's what the man came for God's sake. But the bloody church grabbed hold of it and
I love its radical message.
You know what I mean?
I suppose I'm saying, Father, that we know that and we understand that, but the business of trying to actually build that is quite difficult.
That's why the mob has to take over their churches.
Which is a pretty radical notion.
See, we've reached, after 200 years, as somebody else has written books about millionaires or something, he's saying that for the first, from the time we arrived here, the white invasion, we had years and years and years and years of inequality, because we were still convicts and all that. And then he said we settled down between 1920 and 1970, wasn't it? When we had a long period of equality. You see, some of us will remember the days. Do you remember the days when we were equal? You know what I mean? We had a fair go, for all. And then from the 70 onwards to 2013, we seem to have become unequal again, and it's heading more and more. Now, somebody's got to try and work out the remedy for that, and the remedy for that is tough and all as it is. We've got to start thinking, which is the most painful exercise you can do of all. Forget Pilates and all that. You've got to start thinking, see? And it's the one thing that we've been put to sleep in Western society is, for God's sake, don't think. We will look after everything for you.
Father, that's a pretty... Sorry.
What?
I've just lost the mic.
Have you?
That's all right.
Has he destroyed the mic?
That's a pretty damning condemnation of an education system that should be teaching that and all. Why hasn't that worked, though? What's your reading of why that doesn't work?
Well, I think the Aussies, we're so well off. I mean, I just think we're lazy. We're lovely people. God, we're lovely people. But you go home and if you get yourself inoculated first and turn on the footy show. See, you can't. It's all very good. We've got to learn to talk in tongues. If you can work out what that syndrome is, you've come a long way to understanding. The girls will understand this. You've come a long way to understanding what this wretched, emotion deficiency we're suffering. Somebody was saying the other day, that's the latest disorder, that's the blight of places like Australia, that we're very low. We're very high on IQ and all that. Everybody's got apps and, we've got we know everything now, isn't it? The kid knows everything, Even the baby now knows everything. The baby is now born, I checked the other day, don't laugh, with a longer thumb. Ready to text. See? So it worked again. Look at that.
I wrote that line for you before the show, Father, and you've used it without acknowledging it.
Yes.
No, I'm joking.
No.
So God, for you, is found in the marginalised and those alienated young people
Especially
and those single mums in the high rise.
I'm saying,
why is he there? I'm
saying that the outsiders should be the insiders. I've learnt more. In fact, I made up my mind. Andrea, in the front of your book, the back of the book got acknowledgements, and sure. I acknowledge all those in the two towns who taught me more than I ever taught them.
What did they teach you?
Well, they taught me wisdom.
In what way?
Well, never jump to conclusions and always look on the bright side of life. You see what I mean? So I'm saying that... so a bloke today walked in through the door of our place. It's got Father Bob Maguire Foundation, the next generation. I've got there. So one bloke walked in today, the bloke with tattoos all over his face. What's his name? Shawnee. Frightened the living daylights out of you ordinarily, but all of a sudden he's become very bright and chirpy since we moved into 91 and out of the bloody church. It's funny, isn't it? When you're in the church, he's still angry. When you're in the street, where he is, all of a sudden he's happy-go-lucky with you, you see, because you've almost descended into hell, so to speak. His hell, which is all he's got, and he loves it, you know, it's his play. But he came in today with the most vivid, is it red? Redder than that. Wig. Ghastly looking face with a bloody wig on. Now he's smiling, hello, Father Bob, how are you? Now, the last thing in the world as a people whisperer that you would say, take that bloody stupid wig off. Because there's something going on. Now, that's what I've discovered over 80 years. You don't go, folks, because the best is yet to come. And the outsider really is an insider, because he knows something's going on that I don't know. He's having a whale of a bloody time and I'm not. You see what I mean?
Father,
when he wakes up in the morning, he says, you know, good morning, God. And I wake up and I say, good God morning. Now, who's got the better... Who's got the better deal?
You've cracked that a few times,
isn't it?
Father, what...
So they know things. I'm saying that those outsiders, in fact, are the street philosophers.
But we don't go and ask them, do we?
No, because we're frightened. Somebody told me, one of our workers told me today, he was embarrassed in the city corner of Collins and Spencer, because there's a woman of 50 walking up the street. She's got her undies around her ankles and she's wetting herself. A lot of people are saying to her, oh, for God's sake, why don't you go to the toilet? Now, you see, that's not fair. See? You need a people whisperer.
And what would the whisperer
Well, I don't
say?
know what she'd do, you see, because I'm not the greatest people whisperer in the universe.
But you are, aren't
No.
you? You are.
No. I lost 40 in the 80s. They're dead. It didn't work.
But your ability to talk to alienated kids...
No. They wouldn't have hung themselves from the tree in the front of the presbytery. You see what I mean? I'm not going to accept, medals for something that happened on my watch. That was one of the reasons why I didn't want to get out of the place, because, in fact, there was blood, toil, tears and sweat all over the place. You know what I mean? So you don't want to walk away from the struggle if, in fact, you think you're onto something, so there won't be 40 who die in the 80s in the next generation.
And how would that have been prevented, Father? I mean, what you did and what the Henry Nissons and the brother Alex McDonald's and all those efforts to do that.
You've got to join them.
But you made that attempt, though, didn't you, to do that?
But I can't. I mean, God almighty, a Roman Catholic priest, you know. I mean, I can't join them. I've got to try to motivate other people so that they, with their extraordinary talents, will join the army of what do the Yanks call it now? First responders, isn't it? The ones who are first on the scene, you know, like parents, isn't it? Like that man saying in Sydney when his kid was under the influence of whatever it was, isn't it? And then jumped out the window. Now, he said, my wife, he was overseas, my wife and my daughter didn't know what to do. They tried to get people to, well, you see, we've got to learn, as much as learning beautiful subjects in places like Victoria University, we've got to learn all kinds of people whispering.
And how do we do that?
Well, I don't know. I mean,
do we have sessions with people?
Well, there are people whisperers in there. You've got people who may fail all the examinations that this place puts on them, but in fact they're already highly qualified as people whisperers, isn't it? You know what I mean? They do it every day. We went in yesterday, didn't we, to Children's Hospital, and there's a girl there, 18 years of age, this tall, sitting on the couch. It's on Twitter, isn't it? The photograph. We should be able to put it up on this thing. Can we put it up on this thing?
We don't have the machines.
Have we got the machines?
No, we haven't.
No, because there she is, Bree, and there's a little guy next to her who's about 12, 14, Lockie. And they had trouble finding somebody who'd bring them. I apologise for this because this is in-house stuff. She wanted First Communion. And she, for some reason or other, I don't know, clerics or somebody said you'll have to do 6 classes or something, you know. And she's already qualified because she's this big, you know what I mean? At 18. She's fully qualified, for God's sake. She's disabled. I told her before we left. I said, we're not disabled, you and I. I'm sitting in a buddy chair for a start. I said, we're disabled. Differently abled. Oh, she said, I like that. So I think that she's entitled to status. Now, that in itself, I'm asking them to be ambassadors for my foundation. We haven't got any ambassadors because I thought it was a bit, you know, a bit celebrities and all that. No, I'm going to have Bree and Lockie, who were both beside themselves, so to speak, by the time we left, weren't they? Because we gave them First Communion. Auntie said, by the way, Lockie's not baptised. I said, we'll do it now. See, throw some water on him. No? So we put the oil out of the kit, we confirmed him, see? And then we gave him communione, which allegedly is the cleric only can give you communion, and it's very important the cleric has to own Jesus to give you. Only the cleric can give you communion, you see. It was not the point, you see. The whole point is, you see, that if you take this and eat it, it means that you're prepared to be broken, and like I am, isn't it? That's what meals used to be. Remember the old days around the table? We were there because we said, hey, we're sharing not only the food, we're sharing one another. Remember those days? See, and that's what we're missing out on, see? Is that simple, whatever it's called.
Are you hopeful that we can find our way back to that?
Well, it's up to the comrades.
Yeah.
It's up to the... 6 of them were sacked down at the station pier, weren't they? Because they told the bosses that they were not trained to do the procedure that the bosses required them to do. And the bosses sacked the 6 of them. Now, what do? You shoot the bosses, which happens overseas, isn't it? Or you've got to do something that's almost gloriously ordinary, which is to try to get people to sit down together and work this thing out so that there's nobody sacked and the bosses are, what do you call it, save their face.
You've used the phrase gloriously ordinary a few times tonight, Father,
Yeah.
and it comes up in the book a few times. Tell me where that comes from. And
well, I've been blessed with 40 years in an ordinary place. South Melbourne, Port Melbourne, not flash. They were flash for the first, I don't know, 100 years or something.
Sure.
But they're not flash now. They're ordinary. But
you're saying that's an ability to see something wonderful in the most benign.
Yeah, but I mean, everybody,
look,
you can see she's gloriously ordinary, and is it 5 minutes? She said. Something wrong with your hands or what?
She's signalling
that. See, that's pleuroneuropathy. I got that.
Father, tell us about...
But gloriously ordinary, you see, that's what I'm saying. I mean, you've got to make up your mind whether you're going to settle for that at the end of your life and say, listen, I've led a gloriously ordinary life. Or whether you want to be the richest corpse in the cemetery. You know what I mean? Or the most highly qualified. You've got 14 degrees or something. But what in the name of God was his use on earth? What earthly use has he been? They'll say, oh, Father so-and-so or Monsignor or Bishop or whatever his name is, or Sheikh or Rabbi so-and-so, was of great use, heavenly use. Well, that's not the point. That's why they turned up born as one of us, wasn't it? That's what I thought, was because they said, hey, listen, we better get out of this glory business and become ordinary.
Father, when you look back on your work and your life in the priesthood and all of that, do you...
Is it over?
No, not at all. We're part of the pop-up church.
You know where I live.
You tweet with about 86,000, and I know where you live too now.
You know where I live.
I'm a dangerous man when I know where you live.
Well, we put a new dog flap in today.
I would actually fit through the dog flap. Bruno is a very doggy name, actually.
Brand new. He was looking at it before we came out, wasn't he? He coaxed him through it. Because the dog's too old, poor
Father, there must be an enormous softness to you too, to barrack for the underdog the way you have and to have done that so persistently?
So it goes with being a Collingwood supporter.
Yeah?
So?
Seriously?
No, sorry. Yeah.
I love footy too. Tell me about the Maguire softness, because you must have tremendous empathy for people to go seeking their company.
Yeah, but if I had been sent to Toorak, posted to Toorak, I'd be doing the same thing in Toorak as I was doing in South Melbourne, because all I'd be trying to do is get the Toorak people to wake up to themselves and to join the human race.
Would you have expected more of the Toorak people because they were more
because to
privileged?
those who are given more is expected. And in fact,
it's called communism, isn't it?
No, it's cool. Or the British had a saying, what was it? But the British oftentimes would pinch other people's languages all the time. Pinched the French, which was, what's the French saying? Quick, answer. Noblesse oblige. Yeah. Those who have it have got a duty to share it. A duty, for God's sake. Not charity.
Does that come from the gospel? Is that the essential message of the gospel?
No, that comes from human nature.
So I don't need to be a Christian to come to that conclusion?
No, you see, because the Big Bang, I go back to, what's his name, that thing that wanders around and said, oh God, nobody's doing anything. I think I'm going to jump on a few of these. What's that called, what particle? Huh? Higgs boson. Wandering around and saying, look at all these bloody lazy bastard particles. Nothing was going on. You know what I mean?
You added particles.
Truly, Higgs boson then jumped on a few of them, didn't he? And motivated them, and lo and behold, we had the Big Bang. But nothing would have happened if Higgs boson had done the motivation. Huh? Look up the books, Google it.
We won't do that just yet.
Now that's what I think we are. Each one of us is in fact born with a scrap of the DNA. Each baby is born with a piece of wisdom that nobody else shares. It's unique, isn't it? Each one of us has got unique, isn't it? Unique, for God's sake. Now, the question before the house is, how are we going to get that piece of wisdom to develop with the child, for, 80 years or something, or 90 maybe, before, but see, things happen along the way, and that little piece of wisdom, you see, is tampered with, you see, by bad people, the dark side. Whereas the rest of us, you see, stand by and watch it happening, like we're standing watching the asylum seekers drown at the bloody sea. And somebody's saying, well, listen, we'll have a kind of a forum about it. I was an asylum seeker and you held a forum. And we're saying we're not guilty, it's not culpable. Why is it not culpable? See? And it's the same with the inertia in the western suburbs, the inertia in South Melbourne, Port Melbourne. We watch the developers come in and building more and more and more and more and more and more. The question for democracy in the Western civilisation is, this is the model we've chosen over the last 200 years. You see? The others we don't like in the East because they're monarchies and they're despots. But at least the trains are on time, as with Mussolini and Adolf Hitler.
Father, we have only a few minutes to go. This conversation we're having, and
yes.
I'm on your side.
Have we wrecked this or what?
No, not at all. I could be here for hours. I'm happy to talk into the
you told me...
She did, yeah.
That somebody might like to ask.
The point I want to make, Father, is that to try and get this conversation up in public discourse in our political landscape, it's going to be shouted down, isn't it?
Terrible hard.
Why is that? Why have we lost the impetus to get that up as the going concern?
Because we were put to sleep by so many years of comfort. That 20 to 70, we were put to sleep.
But you haven't been put to sleep, have you?
Oh, no, but I mean, I've got no wife or children, or I've got no ambition, I've got no, you know what I mean? I've got no other thing burdening me.
You had huge ambitions, didn't you?
No, all I wanted to do was to build a better world.
Sure.
That's all I wanted to do.
That's a big responsibility,
in the Scottish spiritual style, which is justice tempered by mercy.
Yep.
Now, I think there's too much bloody justice going all out, and I daren't mention the 8 pages in the papers about Gilmar. Daren't. Because if you're going to go there is nothing I can say that I'm going to get away with.
Yeah.
I'm simply saying that they should be paying a lot more attention to why. I don't care what... See, she's walked out. I don't care why
No,
she
she's
says,
feeling
because
crook.
I
She's my
said, darling,
boss.
don't walk out, because I'm saying flog and hang the man, if that's what you feel will help you. All I'm saying is I want 1 minute before you flog and hang him to get from an explanation, not an excuse, an explanation. Why has Western society gotten to the stage that it's got itself more? We are killing more of ourselves than any terrorist can possibly do. It's a quieter and it's a more bureaucratic and it's a neater and tidy execution, but we are killing a whole generation of teenagers. You see, because they're dying, what do you call it, from the inside out. You see, I mean, forget Syria, because I mean it's on all day and every day. You know, and what do you call it? Asylum seekers' tents stretching for miles and miles and miles of them. You know, and here we are in the affluent West, which I remember in the old days. There was an old, remember the old comedian Alf Garnett used to talk about the affluent West. The affluent West. Here we are, and we're killing ourselves, for God's sake, more than any enemy could possibly do.
Father, when you stand on that hill of all that you've learned from talking to those people and from getting their wisdom and understanding it, and you look ahead, where do you see signs of hope of where that kind of regeneration of that spirit that you're looking for is going to come from?
God, that's what I'm here tonight.
How can you tell it's here?
You can tell it's here because there's these people what? They're free for a start, aren't you? Did they force you in here at Bayonet Point? See, they got here freely, you know what I mean? That's terribly important, is to make the effort, because you could have been anywhere else, couldn't you? They made the effort. Now, that's the effort to think, the effort to move your feet. That's why I'm dying to get back. I started off on that bloody thing over there. No, we ended up on a chair, didn't we? The autoimmune system is feeding off itself.
Just need you in the microphone, otherwise it won't get recorded. But the station won't. They won't, yeah. Do you mind, Father?
So I moved from that thing off to this stick, and then soon I should be walking around on my own. And your mind can negatively direct you not to make the effort.
Father, can I just switch, because we have a lot of students who are in a writing department. No, she's not doing that anymore.
She's doing it now.
I've got my boss over there doing that.
She did
Father,
this.
look at Father.
I know what she did. That.
Father, I've lost my own father, so would you look at me for a moment?
Sorry, darling. Yes.
Did you call me darling? Tell me about the church.
The inquiry's over, you know.
No. Let's go there. Tell us about the church.
Sorry.
And the sex abuse scandal.
Oh, there's nothing to say. We've got institution. The ADF is going through the same, isn't it?
Yeah.
Australian Defence
Talk about the
Force.
church. Tell us.
Well, it's only because it's institutional. It's, what do you call it? I'm saying because of Roman Catholicism and the model of clerics that we invented in, when was it? It wasn't 380. It happened, what, 500 or 600 or something.
We've
they
only
decided
got a few
that to be
minutes of battery time.
You had to be a cleric, priest. Then you had to be celibate. That was part of the package deal for a long time, and was honoured. Was it honoured more in principle than in practice? I don't know. I don't know what the history of that is. But in fact, I would suspect that compulsory celibacy, unfortunately, renders young men totally and permanently emotionally immature. See? It's almost unavoidable. You have to become a voluntary celibate before you can avoid that trap. And it takes many forms, and one of them, obviously, is because after Vatican II, they said, get out in the streets, and all of a sudden there's a lot of clerics out in the streets trying to join Rotary clubs and trying to do lay, secular things, and they were inadequate. They didn't measure up. But they were also powerful, because the cleric is powerful. Each church has got a bloke sitting in a big house. The 200 years we've had, so we've got the real estate. So you're sitting in a big house, and you've got a big church, and you're doing things like funerals, which is powerful. Baptisms, I won't baptise you unless you come to church on Sunday. That's power. Communion, I'm terribly sorry, but if you don't wipe off the lipstick, I can't, because it's not respectful to Jesus. You know, it's, well, there's a clerical app, you know, a game that you have to, they play, the poor buggers, you know, because that's all they've got, you see. And that control thing is far more devastating, I would have thought, and I don't walk out, than the sexual abuse thing, because it takes one form or the other. And you see, we've let them get away with it, the clerics. That's why I was insistent that in Roman Catholicism, the parishes, we've got 250 of them around the place. Each one of those should be 99%, the 99% should be running the show. And the 1%, the cleric, should in fact be put in his place.
But it was great, and you sell it. But you see, that's the sort of. I mean, I sold a warehouse that a lot of Sarah's stuff was in, like work things, and I thought, holy Christ! And
I can imagine there would have been a lot of.
Some of it went to